Hello.
Hello, hello. I'm still sitting here fucking with my screens. How are
FYI,
you?
Dalton got two screens finally. Been telling him to do this for like a year and a half.
Literally. And the only reason I have this now is because it's my girlfriend's. Like she uses it, so but it's nice. I get to see everything as I'm like talking to you. This is nice.
Yeah. And we have like tabs open up. It's
This is
great.
cool. This is cool.
Oh man.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I opened up a long on hype earlier today and I'm just looking at the spot market. We're at 41.96.
We'd
It's
love to
looking
see
good.
it. We'd love to see it.
Yeah, I got brave and put on my leverage hat again.
Oh
But
god.
don't ask me about what my max drawdown is because it's not good.
And my max drawdown hasn't gone negative yet. So
I have no comment on that. It's crazy. I was actually just looking at the date, and this time last year, we were preparing for Blast TGE, and like the following weeks kind of changed both of our lives. So
when was the TGE for Blast?
it got delayed. I actually think it was like exactly a year to date. It's like either on June like 10th or 12th, something like that.
The pivot
Yeah.
that saved my career. The pivot that saved my career.
And then the pivot that spiraled me into like deep depression where I disappeared for like half a year. Well, I actually wanted to give some time to talk about that because, we were doing remit pretty much weekly for, months. And then Blast happened and, shit happened. But,
yeah,
I remember leading up to TGE, everyone was sketched out that one TGE got pushed by a month. And I think we had like a few days notice. And then obviously TGE happened, tokenomics changed, and it was, for a lack of better words, a bit of a shit show. And I remember we were chatting and I just remember you telling me like, I'm going to sell my airdrop and I'm pivoting to Hyperliquid. So can we like go back to that moment a year ago and you like talk me through that again?
Yeah. So we've talked about this a little bit, like personally, and then also with different creators. Like I've talked with like B-Check, just a couple other people like Clemente and people like that have been they were kind of in a similar space, right? With Blast and everything like that. And I guess the way that I can kind of put it is like towards the end of that, like I started really noticing like, hey, maybe we aren't the people that like, maybe we aren't the ones that move the markets, right? Like maybe there won't be any institutional interest. Maybe there won't be anybody that's buying our bags. Maybe Blast Gold won't be $10 a Blast Gold or whatever, And then TGE happened and everybody was like slightly disappointed, but it kind of just, it's part of the game a little bit.
Yeah.
And you had like Fantasy Top and stuff like that was still had a lot of traction and there was hope, but like we never saw any incentivization to stay on Blast outside of like native yield.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of when I was a little disenchanted, just with like the rotation, the rotation season that we had been seeing. Like, and I did a post about this like I think a week ago that was talking about like just kind of every single rotation that has happened since that NFTs have topped. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like you had Solana come in, and then you had just all these different like kind of metas, and then you had the meme coin meta, and then ordinals, and then runes, and this, and then that, and then Blast was kind of that last one that I was just like, fucking A, dude. Like, I feel like as a trader, I've always been good at recognizing trends earlier than other people, and like I think a lot of people think that, right? So I was just like, okay, Hyperliquid to me was way outside of like average CT. And I pinged so many people. I pinged Min. I pinged, like, I'm not going to name drop, but like I was pinging these guys that I respected. And I'm like, hey guys, like, are you fucking around with Hyperliquid at all? And they're like, I don't even know what Hyperliquid is. And I was like, okay. And then that kind of started getting the cogs running, right? And I think that there's like, on one hand, we could talk about like the trading mindset that it takes to like be in front of other people and what it actually takes to actually front run people on CT. And I think CT is an incredible tool to see like what the sentiment is and what people are paying attention to. But then as if you're paying attention to CT now, people are like farming their Twitter accounts and info, Spotify, and this and that. And it's just like,
it's like CT is only as useful as you curate it. Like,
yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. And so when I started going down the hyperliquid rabbit hole, I rewind. I've been in the space since 2017, and I remember going back to 2021. 2017, I fucked up. Like that was my first cycle, and I just completely botched it. Like I turned $500 into 86K into like 120, and then I had like 5.2 Bitcoin and like 88.3 million Dogecoin, which would have been a huge back. But then like I traded it all to zero. And I remember going into my second cycle, and I was like, wow, okay, let's kind of see how can I be anti-contrarian? Like if there's how can I be contrarian? How can I look at a consensus trade and go against that, right? Yeah. And so I remember Solana at $3 when everybody and their mom was like, Solana. And I was just like, Solana's too consensus. Everybody wants Solana to go up. That means it's going to go down. I'm going to go find something that is like out in the weeds. So I found FTM. I go hard into FTM. And then I watched Solana run from $3 to $220. And I was just like, what the fuck did I do? I was there. Yeah. I saw Alex Weiss shilling it. I saw all these guys shilling it. And I fucked it up. So then come to this cycle, and I was just like, Hyperliquid drops. Hyperliquid has no VC funding. They give the biggest airdrop in fucking crypto history. Like it's all going back to the community and all of that kind of stuff. And obviously I received a big airdrop, but like on top of that, the fundamentals are just different than anything we've ever seen before. And I think that is kind of what we're seeing today is like a lot of people are like, it's consensus. And I'm like, bro, this is going to make my point right here. But like, go to my fucking screen. How do I do this?
I got you. No.
Thank you.
Oh. Huh.
So hype is consensus. Yeah, fam. 126,000 holders. Go fuck yourself with your consensus shit. Like, go to fucking anything else that is like, I don't know, I don't even know the fucking Dex screener fucking bullshit. Okay, Dex screener. Name a fucking token. Like let's go to Mog. How many holders does this bitch have?
Scroll down.
Holders, 54,000. And this is on ETH, right?
Yeah.
So then isn't Mog on Sol? I don't even fucking know.
I don't know. Go to Whiff. Go to something like Whiff. People are still shilling that.
I don't even want to see what this has. That can't be right. That's fucking 92,000 Whiff.
You're making me pull up Dex Screener now.
I'm like, how the fuck does this even work? You would think that I don't know what I'm doing. What the fuck? Anyways, you get my point. Like,
yeah,
there's
when we look at like who's holding meme bags and how many holders meme bag has versus something like Hype.
Yeah, and like I think that's like if you were to think about how many people hold Solana or how many people hold ETH or anything like that, like obviously it's apples to oranges a little bit right now, but like Weiser talks like he's mad all the time. I'm not mad, dog.
He's passionate.
I'm sick of people seeing like just wrecking themselves. Like this has just been like a whole spiel for like a year. So yeah, that's how it all panned out.
Yeah. Real quick, because I've been digging into this. I think I watched like fucking almost every interview Jeff has done like in the past like 72 hours. So it's like I've taken a lot of like the ethos in, and like I kind of got that from, you know, all fees going to HLP and the assistance fund and all of that stuff. But can you talk through, you said earlier that you saw Hyperliquid and it was just so different than anything else that you had seen. Like, what was the aha moment? Like, was it the ethos? Was it the way Jeff was talking publicly? Like, what was that?
Yeah,
You know?
I think at the end of the day, the most important thing to me was that seeing like an aligned community, like people that wanted it to go up, and like it wasn't mercenary. It wasn't, and like people sold their airdrops, right? Like there were huge name people that were farming the fuck out of Hyperliquid and then sold their airdrop under $10, and then Hyperliquid continued to run, and that was just like a whole thing on the timeline. And I still think like when Hyperliquid originally ran to like $34, like the hardcore community was still there, and it has only grown, right? Yeah. But I think the aha moment was like seeing how much of like the tokenomics go back to the community, number one, and number two, seeing like for like comparing these types of platforms together, right? Like Solana had a hardcore community back in the day, but then you have like Pump Fun and things like that, and everybody's traded memes, right? But like it's more extractive rather than like community aligning. And who knows what happens in a year's time, 2 years time, anything like that, that maybe Hyperliquid gets like that. It probably will. Like whenever money gets involved, like people do stupid shit, but like at the end of the day, like that aha moment was just seeing how the community acted and knowing all the builders and stuff like that. Like the builder ecosystem is now proliferating. We're seeing like Lambo Land and Bobby and stuff like that come over and see like the opportunity at hand. You have like HIP3 builder codes, those kind of things that are going to open up the ecosystem and proliferate Hyperliquid without Hyperliquid actually doing anything outside of what they're already doing. You know what I'm saying? So it's just super, super interesting stuff. So,
and I mean, HyperEVM today is only an alpha. And I think like that's something that people also forget. Like I remember, because I spent post-blast, obviously was very depressed. And one thing, I don't know if I've told you this, but like I have to give you kudos, Dalton, because like you did something that I was just so fucking afraid to do. And I think like we were both very much in the spotlight when it came to Blast. Like, you know, we created a fuck ton of content around it. We farmed the fuck out of it. And you went with your gut. Like I remember hearing about Hyperliquid when 404s came out, just because I was like researching 404s and they were one of the first perp dexes that added like a Pandora perp market. And I was just like, oh, it's a perp dex. So when you brought it up again, I was like, oh, it's a perp dex, but you're like, Jen, it's really interesting. And I was like, yeah, but I just took this progress council position at Blast. And then, you know, I kind of saw how the community reacted when you just like very smartly and frankly like told them I'm pivoting to Hyperliquid, and I got so fucking scared, and then I proceeded to just, you know, get depressed. But it's like I spent time in the soul shitters, and I forgot where the fuck I was going with this. I kind of wanted to like segue this into state of the markets, because it's like everyone started ramming into pump funds. And then we had Trump drop his token, Melania drop, and Libra drop. And I think it's really bizarre that like, you know, Bitcoin has basically hit all-time highs and is nearing all-time highs again. And the market is pumping, but the vibe on the timeline still feels so disenchanted, except for within this Hyperliquid ecosystem. Like the more it's wild.
Yeah. Well, and dude, going back to the Blast stuff, like I think that this is just, I think both of our stories are like stories that any like aspiring creator, anything like that, I think kind of comes with the territory. Like getting murdered on the timeline wasn't fun, but I think at the end of the day, you have to Blast is not the way. No, like I think you have to take your shot, and like sometimes you're gonna fuck up, right? Like you take your shot and you miss. And how many times have we done that, right? Like I was so big into runes, like I was like, okay, this is gonna work, this is gonna work, this is gonna work, this is gonna be the rotation from Solana.
Dude, I remember you pumping into pups. You were all like, I just bought a huge bag of pups.
And like it ended up working out, but like it didn't work out the way that I thought it would. And I think that like both of us have analyst backgrounds, and we like to look at the data, right? And it's like when you look at the data and you're like, huh, this is something, but like I think there's creators and then there's analysts. And I think there's been talk about this on the timeline where like certain influencers don't use anything and they're just like spewing random bullshit without actually using something. Yeah. Jen and I aren't those people. Like we are users of everything and then we go and share whatever we find, right? And so I think that going to what you're talking about Hyperliquid and stuff, like this is HyperEVM right now, right? So this is like daily transactions. As you can see, like this is 2 months ago. You only had like 144 daily transactions, but look at this. You only had 3,000, 4,000 users. And like this has spiked obviously with like different drops, like Hypios are like a big thing. Buddy was a big thing. It still is a big thing. And people are like trying to find ways to farm this stuff. But like, I don't really talk about farming because it's like, I think it's just authentically trying to use something, right? Like if you authentically try to use something and find your edge, the Solana folks really aren't here yet. So yeah.
They tried to come. They tried to come for a second, and then they like hated
their attention span. Exactly, and their attention span is going like. I talk to my close friends about this all the time. Like the way to win is to just play the long game. And what is the long game here? If we see a season 3 points, if we see a second airdrop, like those are going to be massive wins. Massive. Is that promised? No. Do we see? And like, I think you've probably watched all the podcasts with Jeff. I actually haven't. I've watched a couple of them, but like, I think just authentically using this stuff is where you get your edge, right?
Totally. Well, speaking of that, I kind of want to go over Hyperliquid 101. Like I sat in a Hyperliquid spaces the other day. That wasn't really thrown by someone from the Hype community. I think it was trying to be an educational space, and to some degree it was, but I still find that I'm getting DMs being like, I know absolutely nothing about Hyperliquid. Yeah. So before we like jump into the like HyperEVM versus Hypercore and all of that stuff, do we want to do a state of the market? Like let's look at TVL, let's look at fees. I know Hyper unit spot volume crossed 6 billion today. Pretty fucking wild.
I think maybe first things first is probably give your kind of overview of like what you have seen and what you've learned in the last like couple of weeks. And then we can show the stats on that. Cause I get DMs daily where people are like, dude, how the fuck does this work? And then on top of that, you have like the hyper unit bridge and things like that, which is like a huge unlock for a lot of people. But yeah, like kind of what have you learned as you've been kind of like speed running, like learning this ecosystem? Like what are the things that have stood out to you over the past 72 hours? And go from there.
Okay. First, I think the big thing was kind of understanding the mission of Hyperliquid. Because when, like I said earlier, I thought it was just a perp DEX. And what I have found as I've spent a little bit more time on the chain, obviously a lot more time in the docs and researching, is it's so much more than that. Like, I think you have a lot of products that say like, oh, we want to be the future of finance. We want to do blah, 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 blah. But what's clear to me is how Hyperliquid has been built from the ground up. It's truly built to try to house all of finance on chain. I think one of the things that I've kind of noticed, and like, to be clear, I don't come from a finance background, guys. Like I'm an artist, like I'm a little girl. I'm not a little girl. I am a woman with a camera and I run around and I shoot stuff with it. So it's a little bit of a learning curve, but you know, Jeff has background as a quant trader, came into crypto in 2020, realized that market was super inefficient, starts market making. And by 2022, it's like, I guess him and his team were some of the biggest market makers on centralized exchanges, right? So you actually have a team that understands finance trying to build a completely new primitive. So that's like high level, something that I now understand and that stood out to me. And really, I don't know if we want to jump into this yet. I can reflect it to you. You can tell me like what I'm missing, but understanding that Hyperliquid L1 is basically a general purpose-built chain, but it's built with financial primitives baked into it. And that's kind of what makes it completely different than like other L1s and L2s that we've seen. And there's like a very, go ahead.
Yeah. So like what I would say is like you have, and not very many people really understand this. And so like these questions about like what is Hyperliquid, they think perp DEX, right? Like they're like, oh, it's perp DEX. So you have on one side, you have Hypercore, and on the other side, you have HyperEVM. Okay. Hypercore and HyperEVM are connected, but Hypercore is the thing that most people know. So like if you're like, oh, I want to go leverage trade, you go to Hypercore. Now, Hypercore is purpose built for high speed trading, right? Like high speed, a shit ton of transactions per second. I think it's at like 200K transactions per second right now. There's like freaking blocks are just flying, right?
It's like 0.2 second latency.
Yeah, like it's wild. And then on the perp DEX, there's no gas, right? Which I think is really, really epic, right? So like there's no gas. It's just high speed trading, whatever you want, like leverage trading, spot trading. And that's where kind of hyper unit comes in. Is like they're like the asset tokenization layer that brings in majors from other ecosystems. So Bitcoin, Sol, ETH, they have Fartcoin, they bought the UPump token. So they offer spot trading from other ecosystems and then bring it onto Hyperliquid. So you can take advantage of like the high speed trading and like the UX and all of that. That's Hypercore. Okay. And we'll get into like tokenization or like the HIP1, HIP2, all of that kind of stuff. That is built on top of Hypercore.
Yeah.
Now, HyperEVM is the all-purpose smart contract platform. Now, what is a smart contract platform? It's Ethereum, Solana, like anything that is built on top of that, it is because it's a smart contract platform. So you have DeFi, you have memes, you have NFTs, you have random fucking bullshit that's just like on the chain. That is on HyperEVM. Now, HyperEVM has gotten like some negative press because it was released in alpha and it wasn't really packaged well. Like it wasn't fancy. There was nothing to do. It just dropped out of nowhere. There's no insiders. So like, and this is kind of like back to the Hyperliquid ethos. It's like, there are no insiders. There's no VCs that are dumping on you. There's no people that are privy to the ecosystem or any of the inside information. And I'm building in the ecosystem and I still don't know like when the right precompiles are coming. Well, now it's called Core Writer. Like we don't know when any of this shit is happening, which makes it fair. Like, yeah, it's not going to just drop. And I think that this is kind of where Hyperliquid goes against the grain a little bit, but it's refreshing. And I think that is why it has like the freaking chaotic, like core users, right? Like big HyperEVM user here. It has gotten a lot better, right? So yeah, it is pretty interesting, but like those two ecosystems are both Hyperliquid and they're connected, but they don't seem connected, right? And so this is where you have like the parallelization of two different ecosystems
and like one unified state.
Yeah.
With that said, let's check out the TVL. Look at some of those metrics because pretty fucking insane.
Yeah.
I'll pull it up. By the way, you're like talking like a fucking dev.
Let's go.
You do. You're all like,
I'm like, I have had to learn so much shit. And I'm just like, wow, this is really interesting. But like, I think that at the end of the day, like the most important thing is like, there is a huge lack of education or educational content. And like, dude, I'm not a dev. Like I don't dev. I don't know the first thing about deving. But the thing is like, I can read and I can research. And then that there's a big lack of that on the timeline.
Dude, for sure. Like I told you before we got on, I was like, I just spent an hour talking to someone about Core Writer and making sure I understood it correctly.
Yeah.
Cool. So looking at TVL, we're at 1.7 billion, which I think is all-time high on TVL. I imagine, majors pumping has something to do with this, but Dalton, I know there's like a difference between bridged unit assets and like how it appears in DeFi Llama. I think I saw like some discourse in the comments like earlier today. So do you want to help me break down how to read this and how to
I think that there's going to continue to be a lot of misunderstandings on this. Like the first thing to talk about, obviously, the TVL pumping. If you have here, I'll send you.
And this TVL is combined hypercore and hyper EVM, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you want to pull that chart up, I just sent it in the comments here or in the private chat.
I got it.
So again, this goes to show the difference here. So that top one is going to be circulating supply that is not staked, right? So the top little bracket right there, the teal bracket. Okay, so that's 51% of circulating supply is not staked. It's not doing anything in the ecosystem. Okay, the next one is going to be circulating supply of hype that is on HyperEVM. Okay, below that is Hyperliquid circulating supply that is natively staked, and then below that is the assistance fund. Okay, and so the assistance fund, basically, just to give you the TLDR, assistance fund is 97% of the revenue of Hyperliquid goes back to buying back hype. So at this point, they have like 24 million hype, which comes out to 856 million. I think they hit $1 billion earlier. I don't remember. I saw it somewhere. But yeah, as of right now, I think they have 856 million. Let's see. Maybe I need to refresh my page.
Do we know what happens with the hype in the assistance fund?
So it's $1.025 billion in the assistance fund right now. So the assistance fund is, nobody really knows, like, this is part of the black box. I think it's going to be used like in if there was ever to be like a huge hack or something like that, like I think this would probably be something that it could be used for. Other people have speculated, like an insurance fund of some kind.
Yeah.
Other people have speculated that there could be like increased like staking rewards or something that would come out of that. But if you go to the next little thing, the next little bucket right there, that is non-circulating supply. So this is future emissions. So as you see, 42.374% of the supply is delegated for future emissions. What are future emissions? It's boosted staking rewards, potentially an airdrop, those kind of things that, like, we don't really know what the hell could be done with this. Like, this is like Jeff and team deciding what they want to do with future emissions. And then the top one is 24% for others. So I would put this in like the team bucket and stuff like that. So yeah, going back to the assistance fund is like just consistent buybacks. This is just a market order that consistently goes and goes and goes. And then if you go to Hyperscan, I have it on my screen. If you go to Hyperscan, in the top, let's see, can I go to the dashboard?
Yeah, right here. Oh, right here, the TWAP.
Yeah. So yeah, you have like the TWAP and buy pressure, and then in that top left corner up there, that's the fees. So these are the fees on the 24-hour. So today they've brought in $2.7 million of just fees, and 97% of that goes back to market buying hype. So this is like a permanent TWAP that just keeps coming in. So this is when people talk about like the assistance fund and stuff like that, or big volume days. And this is another part of that just makes me so bullish on this, is like when you see volatility on the timeline, like Trump says that there's tariffs or whatever. What is the first thing that people do? They're like, oh, there's news, pump fund shit, right? Like there's news. I'm going to jam as much money as I can into a leverage position to take advantage of the news. So when there's volatility on the timeline where other projects get fucking run over, Hyperliquid actually does really, really well on high volatility days. Why? Because that freaking fee just like skyrockets. So if you go back to DeFi Llama, I keep making you run all over the place. We probably
I like it. It's good.
If you look at DeFi Llama and then go to Hyperliquid on the left side, go to fees on like the far left on the column.
Yeah, hold on. I
scroll down.
I can read. There it is. Fees and revenue.
There we go. And then go to fees for Hyperliquid. And then if you look at that chart, like it's fucking like insane.
Yeah.
So there you go. So like, I think it was probably a month ago, they changed the fee structure and they increased fees. And so since then, like there's been just like consistent $3 million days, whereas before 3 million was like the all-time high on fee days, on like big volatility days. And then we've seen like up to almost 5 million in fee days. So it's pretty crazy.
That's wild. You know, you could have just told me to toggle.
I know. I couldn't find it on the thing. That's why I didn't say to do that, but whatever. Same.
Whatever. Okay, so that's where we can observe the fees, observe the assistance fund, TWAPing in. But if someone's just like looking at, Hyperliquid on DeFi Llama, we now know that this TVL is combined Hypercore and HyperEVM. Yeah. For bridge TVL, does this include Hyperunit?
So the bridge TVL includes stablecoin market cap. So whenever people bridge in, they have to, before HyperUnit was around, they would have to bridge in USDC from Arbitrum to Hyperliquid. So like that's what you see up there is the 3.5 billion in USDC. And then on, I believe, so if you go to Hyperscan and then you see the stats in the top left corner, that's another place that you can track total spot USDC. So that's USDC, Arbitrum USDC that is on Hyperliquid in the spot ecosystem. And then the rest of that is going to be in perps. So there's what, like almost 3 billion worth of USDC, Arbitrum USDC on Hyperliquid.
Got it. And then another dash that I've been looking at has been Unit for HyperDash.
Yeah,
this gangster. Is like pretty cool.
Yeah, it's gangster.
Cool. Okay, so my understanding of Unit is, and you touched on this earlier, but basically it's this native asset layer that allows native assets from Bitcoin, Sol, Ethereum, and Fartcoin to be deposited directly onto Hypercore. And you can withdraw from Hypercore back to the native chain.
Yep.
And I've seen like a lot of folks be like, oh, this is the most underutilized thing. This is so bullish. Can you extrapolate on that?
So like, I think that there's a couple ways to think about Unit, and this is like how I use it personally. Like on top of the fact that like you can use, I'm finna bridge. On top of the fact that you can use like majors from across ecosystems. So like I wasn't a huge ETH bull by any means, but there are a lot of ETH people that don't want to sell their ETH, but they still want to get exposure to the ecosystem, right? So I think that that's really interesting. Like the Bitcoin bulls that want to use their Bitcoin and deploy it into the HyperEVM ecosystem.
Like lending.
Exactly.
It's hard to do that on Bitcoin's blockchain.
Yeah. So like the two ways that I've used it are like any of my profits from any trade that I put through on Hyperliquid, I just go straight to the Bitcoin USDC market on Hypercore, spot buy. And then I just like 20% of my profits, I keep going into Bitcoin. I've always wanted to do that, but I haven't been able to. I have to freaking send it to a centralized exchange, and then centralized exchange gets me in trouble with all the freaking government shit. And then there's like taxes on top of that. And then I have to freaking take it off the exchange, and it's always a headache. And I'm like, dude, fuck that. Like, I'm just not going to deal with it. Unit has changed that for me. So I've been putting through basically a consistent TWAP once a week where I'm just like, okay, cool. Like this is the money that I made this week. I'm going to go into Bitcoin. The cool part of this, outside of the fact that it's a lot easier to buy, it's that you can actually use your Bitcoin. So you could go to Felix, you could go to Hyperlend, you could go to HyperFi and put your Bitcoin to work, right? And so then you could get BTC to USD, USDT, whatever, and then swap that on. So that's all on HyperEVM, right? We were talking about the two. We have HyperCore, which is the hyper functional financialization
Like
DEX.
high performant. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have HyperEVM. So HyperEVM is where I'm putting all of this shit to work. And so then you have your Bitcoin over there, you take a loan out, you say BTC to USDT. I then bridge back to Hypercore. I swap my USDT to USDC, and now USDC I can do whatever I want with. If I want to go levered long, because levered long in the sense that I'm still buying spot hype, but I'm buying it with borrowed assets, then I can do that, right? And so then you're not only are you like taking advantage and authentically using HyperEVM, which is like the house of finance, right? But you're also using your Bitcoin and putting it to work, which I think is fucking gangster. So I don't know. It's just been a huge unlock for me personally of like trying to be more mature. Like I think if you talk to any soul shitcoiner, like so many people would want to take advantage of like, oh, I hit a big trade, take 50K out and fucking buy Bitcoin. Buy half a Bitcoin and then shove it in cold storage and like let it go. Or freaking bridge it over to HyperEVM and make money on your Bitcoin, right? So I don't know. It's like a very generalized way of like how I'm using Unit, but I think it's a pretty big unlock for HyperEVM.
It's huge. I mean, even for me, I have like some Bitcoin that I would buy on centralized exchanges, but like for the first time in what feels like forever, I'm actually adding to my Bitcoin stack. I'm trying to be like you. I'm trying to stack hype and BTC. It's great. I also
the hype BTC barbell, baby.
Yeah. And then like some memes in between, but like at the end of the day, I want more hype. Take profit on those fucking memes.
Yeah.
I do like how you specified that levering long in a spot position means a spot position, not turning on 10x leverage and buying something, I don't know, on the leverage market. I just thought that was a cool distinction.
Yeah. Well, I know that I'm sitting across from like a total degenerate that likes to fuck around in the perps market. Dude, like I think everybody has to go through it, right? Like I talk to my friends and like, oh wait, so what's leverage? And then they freaking understand it and they're like, so if it doesn't go below $30, then I win. And I'm just like, oh God. But everybody has to learn, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think Trump was my biggest leverage lesson. I think I told you I was long at what 3x because I think that was the max. I was long starting at $9, and as it went up, I just took my additional margin and I kept buying more. And so by the time it was at like $70, I think I had my like take profit. I literally had my take profit at like the fucking Pico top. I was like, it's gonna go to $80 or $90, and I was looking at 170 grand of unrealized P&L. And then I just see like a sharp drop and I'm like, what the fuck? So I close it and I'm like, okay, I'm going to reopen here. Like, why is it dropping? I didn't have two screens at the time. I was just on my laptop. I had no idea Melania had dropped. But as a result of that, I've now pushed over $9 million in volume on Hyperliquid. And
let's hope for a second airdrop, huh?
Yeah, please, someone. So, okay, I feel like we covered.
I have my birds chirping. Hold on, I'll close the window. Give me a sec.
Oh, you're all
I'm like, I can't hear it. So.
Always fun of you. I hear it now. Dude, it kind of sounds like a Hunger Games.
Shit.
I still hear it, but it's all good.
I closed my window.
You're all good. I feel like we've like now kind of gone over fundamental basics. Obviously, we don't know if another airdrop is coming. It's like you said, just use the product authentically. Try to touch all of the core use cases of, Hyperliquid across core and EVM. For people who are just getting started, who maybe are new to DeFi, because you and I both come from like NFT lending backgrounds, etc., what would be your biggest tip?
For like just authentically using?
I think like think of like your friends who are noobs that are like completely new to DeFi.
Dude, this is cracking me the fuck up. I'm in fucking Mexico City, dog. I don't know what to tell you. But there's a grandma that lives above me. I live in an apartment building and she puts fucking bird food out and it cracks me the fuck up, dude, because like she's like 90 years old and I just look at her and she like spreads bird seed all over the freaking windowsill and then I just have birds here all the time. I think it's cool, but whatever. So yeah, I guess my main take for like getting exposure to the ecosystem and like using it authentically, right? So what I mean by that is like opening and closing trades doesn't do anything for you. Like, yes, you get a shit ton of volume, but like it's not the volume, right? So like, let's rewind. There was season 1, which was the point season, right?
Yeah.
Season 1 points, season 2 points. Season 1 points was for perps. Season 2 points was for perps and spot tokens. This is what printed like all the people that got exposure to Hyperliquid. People are just spot trading. All of the memes that you see on Hypercore, whether it be like fucking, yeah, you could go down the list, right? Like that is what Hyperliquid was basically incentivizing. Now, what we learned from season 2 was that opening and closing trades, so just doing a shit ton of volume, did nothing for you. Like you actually had to authentically use the shit. So if you weren't trying to hold something, it seemed as if you were penalized, right? Like if you were just like opening something and then flipping it for 15% and then closing it and then waiting for it and then just like doing it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth on like low cap shitters, because a lot of these tokens were at like 200K market cap, didn't do anything for you. Now, suppose there is a season 3 points. If there is a season 3 points, what I would recommend is doing something that exists on both Hypercore and HyperEVM, something that makes the platform money, whether that be perp trading or spot trading. Using HyperUnit, I think, is going to be a big one, because that's a huge differentiator between Hyperliquid and other ecosystems. Like obviously liquid staking is in there. Lending, like I was just talking about, putting my Bitcoin to work, whether that be on Felix with stability pools or whatever the case may be. Now, don't go like open a 10x long, like start fucking with things like an incremental like play money, and just get to know it. Like I think that this is like a much more mature ecosystem than other things like Solana, like meme coining, right? Like your counterparties here aren't like total retards that are just like fucking doing random bullshit. Like I think that you have to learn, and you have to want to learn. So like and that's kind of why we decided to do this, right? Is like to show people how to do some of this shit and not get them wrecked. Hopefully, like I don't, that's not the goal.
I mean, I think maybe in next week's episode, we can open up like a Felix and kind of show like, hey, here's your borrow APY. Your borrow APY is dependent on how utilized the pool is. And it's like,
you're telling me right now,
dude, yeah, I thought,
pool, I was like,
I thought you were in the USDT pool.
I am with my Bitcoin stuff. So I'm on 3 different wallets. The only reason I create all my stuff, but like I have 2 Bitcoin wallets and I have a Hype wallet. My Hype, I did Hype USDE because everybody's like, USDE, like I'm fucking bullish, whatever. Like there's points or something like that. I was like, dude, I don't know. So I just like followed people into it. And yeah, like I'm much more comfortable holding USDT. So which it's just personal preference. Like I don't have anything wrong with Athena, or like I'm not against them, but yeah, like I definitely kind of played myself on that one.
Oh my God.
What are you in on Felix, and how are you putting it to work?
So I am in on the vanilla market for borrowing BTC, and I'm doing that with USDT. And I think like the interest rate right now is like 3.93. It's beautiful. I'm like, that's great. And then I also decided, until liquid staking, K Hype, is live, I'd put my Hype to work. So I'm also borrowing through the vanilla markets USDT. I took the USDT, took it to Hypercore, swapped for USDC, and shoved all of that shit into Liminal when Liminal opened their cap. And you were the one who introduced me to Liminal. It's basically, I don't know if you guys have heard of the term delta neutral farming, but it's where you basically are farming perp funding rates, which if you don't know what that is, we can get into that in another episode.
Yeah. I think we'll have to break that down at some point, because it's pretty gangster. Like I've talked to a couple people that are like, I'm using it as well, and it's pretty legendary.
Well, I remember when we used to be able to long and short like ETH NFTs, and you would tell me how you were farming funding rates. I never understood how you did it, because I'm like, this is so fucking manual. And like now that I see the positions open on Hypercore, I'm just like, I would have never manage this on my own.
Shout out NFT perp back in the day.
Back in the day.
Yeah, it's like super interesting, right? I have
Yeah.
all my hype staked. Shout out Eli. Should I do anything else? Like, obviously,
We are not
I'm part of the
financial
team.
advisors, to
Yeah.
be very clear. I'm just gonna
First and
throw that
foremost.
out there.
Second off, like I'm part of the team at Kinetic. Kinetic is the Hyperliquid native LST that's going to have like a shit ton of integrations on day one, which is really exciting. Like we've been doing a lot of work since I think like September. So like getting to know all of these teams, you were just talking about Liminal, Felix, Hyperlend, those guys. So I think that is really exciting, like to see kind of the expansion of the ecosystem on HyperEVM. And like we were talking about TVL earlier, like obviously the liquid staking is kind of the heartbeat of DeFi. It's like a very integral part of the ecosystem. And just for those of you that don't know what liquid staking is, if you stake your hype right now, staked hype basically means like you natively stake it. There's a 7-day lockup, right? So in exchange for your collateral, you get 2.2% APR. Some people are like kind of disgruntled by this, but on one hand, like I see where they're coming from. On the other hand, that leaves a really big opportunity for the DeFi ecosystem on HyperEVM to outpace that. So basically, all of that to say, like I expect the Kinetic launching and K-Hype launching to really boost the DeFi ecosystem, and then we're going to really see what the ecosystem is made of. So it's really exciting.
I know, I think it was like a week ago, you guys published your score site for the different
Stake Hub.
Yeah, the Stake Hub. When K-Hype comes live, are we going to see a fluctuating interest rate that we'll earn if we have K-Hype? Because aren't you guys like rotating between delegators depending on scoring?
Basically what Stake Hub is just it's decentralized validator scoring. So right now, if you look at other LSTs in the ecosystem or in any ecosystem, there's like a decentralized way to do this, and then there's a centralized way to do this. Centralized would be saying like, we're going to whitelist these validators, and like we have had validators reach out to us and be like, well, like maybe there's like something we could do. And it's like, no, like this is in Hyperliquid ethos. Like we're just saying like, may the best man win, and we're going to stick to that. So that's where Stake Hub kind of comes in, right? Now, I think where it gets really interesting with K-Hype is like all of the integrations that we've been working on behind the scenes are going to open up like HyperEVM DeFi, right? So whether that be using your K-Hype as collateral on a lending market or putting that to work on funding rates and seeing what you can do, different ways of using K-Hype, whether that be in vaults or anything like that. So more to come on that, but more to come on that. Yeah.
I think like I just remember when I was doing liquid staking for ETH, like there was usually like a base interest rate that all staked ETH was earning, and then you could go into lending markets and earn more on top of that. And I was just wondering, I guess if the K-Hype interest rate was going to be 2.2, is that like just like the standard interest that's earned across?
That's just like native staking at this point.
Okay.
So then basically that's where kind of liquid staking comes in, right? So like if you're looking at Jito, for instance, Jito has like a MEV component, and that MEV component is rerouted back to Jito holders, right? So you have Jito Sol, and then they have like a MEV component, and that MEV component nets them X amount of percentage on top of the native staking rate. And like for those that are interested in what liquid staking like really is it's like that necessarily apply to you, right? So like I'm talking about if you want to unstake your hype, you can just trade your K-Hype on any AMM and let it go, right? So you're still getting the 2.2 plus whatever DeFi ecosystem or DeFi yield strategy you're running. And then on top of that, you have the ease of access of flipping in and out of K-Hype whenever you want, which is like what people
benefit. Yeah. Because I remember I had some staked hype and I was looking at swapping it, and there was like quite a bit of slippage when I went to do that. Yeah. So I think we covered a fuck ton for our first show. God, it feels so good to be back.
I know.
You know, guys, obviously, like in the comments or DM myself or Dalton if there are specific things you want us to talk about. But I'm thinking maybe next week we can go into HIP 1, 2, and 3 and look at some other interesting things that are happening in the ecosystem. Also, check this out. 42 and 30 cents. Yeah, I think that's almost there.
We like to see it.
We'd love to see it. Oh my God. Bitcoin's at 110. ETH is pumping too. It's looking so fucking good.
I was giving Stats like a really hard time about that because he's been like bull posting. He's been bull posting ETH, and I'm like, dude, shut up.
Oh my God.
But yeah, no, I know. Stats and I used to work together, so Stats and I go way back.
He's everyone's favorite Web3 boomer.
Definitely. But yeah, for next week, like if there are any questions or anything like that I'm like more than happy to field those. And on top of that, like you're looking at one of the best fucking research people in the game. Jen can break down all of these like super difficult to understand mechanics and like make it easier to digest. So I think going into HIP1, HIP2, HIP3 and builder codes, I think would be really interesting because those are really hot topics that are like discussed all the time on the timeline, right? But I don't think people really understand how the proliferation of Hyperliquid and Hyperliquid infrastructure is going to get pushed once HIP3 and builder codes kind of come to fruition. I think we're some time away from that, but I think for folks that are looking on like a long time horizon and like actually interested in what is going to come, I think it would be cool to cover all of that.
Yeah, I think we break that down and maybe we break down lending and funding rates. We can just kind of show what we've been doing every week.
Let's go.
We'll be back next Tuesday, same time. I have my first Learning in Public episode around Hyperliquid also coming out next week. So should be a good one, guys. And I'm probably frozen.
Yep, you are. You're good now.
All right. Well, whatever. All right. We'll see you guys next week.
All right. See you.
Bye.